All right, let's unpack a fundamental truth about wealth, something that's really been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Long before we had currency or credit or even code, we had the ground beneath our feet. Today we're going to explore why land wasn't just the first asset and why it might actually be the last one that truly matters.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with a question that feels like a total paradox, right? The very people who are building our digital future, literally creating fortunes out of nothing but code, they're turning around and buying up one of the oldest, most physical assets there is. Why? Well, the answer to that really pulls back the curtain on the unwritten rules of money and power.
To really get to the bottom of this, we have to rewind the clock. And I mean way back. We're going to look at land not just as an asset, but as the original hard asset. It's the blueprint for everything we think of as value today.
So what does that even mean, a hard asset? Well, it really just boils down to a few key things. It's finite. They aren't making any more of it. It's visible, it's tangible, and, this is crucial, it's unforgeable. You just can't print more land or whip up a counterfeit acre. Every other system of value that's ever come along since, from gold all the way to crypto, is basically just trying to copy those exact qualities.
And what's really wild is when you look back through history, you see this exact same pattern again and again and again. In ancient Egypt, wealth wasn't about gold. It was about owning the fertile land along the Nile. In the Roman Empire, conquest meant distributing territory, which was the very basis of your status and your family's future. And of course, in feudal Europe, your entire life, your whole identity, was defined by whether you owned the land or just worked on it for somebody else. For literally thousands of years, land was the one true ledger of power.
But here's the thing, that ancient system didn't just up and vanish with the start of the modern world. No, the argument here is that it just evolved. It changed its vocabulary, but it kept its core structure completely intact.
I mean, think about it this way. The feudal system was incredibly good at defining who owned what. It was like a shared ledger, totally transparent to the people at the top, the lords and the kings, and completely unchangeable for everybody else. That exclusivity was everything. It was basically a pre-digital version of a secure, permissioned blockchain.
And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? It's a brilliant illustration of the main point. Capitalism didn't get rid of the feudal hierarchy, it just gave it a makeover. The feudal lord became the landlord, the serf became the tenant, and the actual physical chains that tied a person to a piece of land, they were swapped out for the financial chains of rent and mortgages. The dependency is still there, it just runs on debt now.
So how did this big rebranding actually happen? How does something as real as a field become, just an entry in a bank's spreadsheet? Well, it happened through a process we can call the Great Abstraction. The whole thing happened in about 3 key steps. First, land got securitized. It was chopped up into parcels, given legal titles, and made taxable. Then it was collateralized. You see, banks use that titled land as the backing for loans. That is literally how the Industrial Revolution was paid for. And finally, it was monetized. Things like money were created to be these portable tokens that represented a claim on that underlying value. The value of land never went away. It just got turned into a liquid.
This quote, man, it just gets right to the heart of it. We tend to think of money as the ultimate thing, but it's really just a piece of technology. It's a tool we invented because you can't exactly carry an acre of farmland around in your wallet. Money is just a portable receipt that gives you access to the real asset.
Okay, so this all brings us right up to the present day. Let's take a look at how this ancient pattern, the search for something finite and ownable, is playing out right now in the world of code and blockchains.
Isn't it fascinating? The very words we use to describe all this cutting-edge tech are pulled straight from the physical world of digging stuff out of the ground and owning property. We mine for Bitcoin, we buy digital real estate in the metaverse, and that is not an accident. That's our feudal DNA, as the source calls it, expressing that same ancient drive for scarce, provable ownership.
The technology couldn't be more different, but that core human impulse, it's identical. A nobleman back in the 1300s wanted a title deed locked away in a ledger to make sure his family was set for generations. A crypto investor today wants a private key that gives them absolute, undeniable control over an asset on an unchangeable blockchain.
It's the same quest for permanence, just with different tools. And this is where we get to the great irony in all of this. Bitcoin was literally created to be an escape from the traditional financial system. But what happened? The people who got in early became the new digital landlords. Scarcity and access got concentrated at the top all over again. And maybe most telling of all, when people made massive fortunes in this new digital world, where did they put the money? It flowed right back into physical land and real estate. The grand escape led right back to where it all started.
So this brings us completely full circle, right back to that question we started with. And to the final argument of this whole explainer. Why does it seem like all wealth, no matter how abstract or digital it gets, has this gravitational pull right back to the ground?
Well, history gives us a pretty clear answer on this one. When these bubbles of abstraction finally burst, and they always do, whether it was the South Sea bubble in the 1700s, the stock market crash in 1929, or the financial crisis of 2008, capital doesn't just run to another abstraction. It runs to something real, something tangible. It runs to land. And this scale of what we're talking about is, well, it's just mind-boggling. $380 trillion. That's the estimated value of all the world's real estate. It's a number so big it's almost impossible to wrap your head around, but you have to really understand land's central role in the global economy. And this chart just illustrates the point perfectly. The value of all global real estate absolutely dwarfs the value of all the stock and bond markets combined. Think about that. All the companies, all the innovations, all the government debt in the world, it all sits in the shadow of land. That's why it's the ultimate safe haven, because it's the foundation the entire system is built on.
Now, this is a really profound way to think about it. We're always told we have a housing market, but the argument here is that it's not a market at all. It's a sorting mechanism for wealth. You know those empty luxury apartments in cities like New York or London? They aren't primarily homes. They're vaults. They're collateral with the skyline, a physical anchor to park abstract fortunes in a really volatile world.
And that leaves us with the final, unchangeable truth of it all. We can innovate new technologies, new currencies, new virtual worlds at a dizzying pace. But the one thing we cannot innovate is more land. Its scarcity is absolute. And in a world of infinite copies and digital everything, the one thing that can't be copied is what ultimately holds all the value. Land was the first asset, and for that one simple reason, it will probably be the last.